right, so good evening, everyone. It's nice to see all of us. I'm sure there are a couple of people who will be joining shortly, but it's, of course, as usual, great to host these events. Before we start, I just want to check if anyone is newly registered or anyone is newly certified in any of the certifications under PMI, or you've just registered to be a member. I just want to acknowledge you. So I'll give it 2 seconds that I see if anyone raises their hand. Okay, all of you look like veterans. So Winston, I believe this will be a good opportunity to meet with veterans. But anyone who comes in and they're new, just raise your hand and I'll say hello. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of some of the board members of PMI. If you could just quickly raise your hand. Any board members present? Okay, Lynette, do you want to unmute and just say hi? Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This is Lynette. I handle marketing. Karibuni to the session.
I can see the president is also raising her hand, so perhaps.
Right. Thanks. Thanks, Lynette and Karibu. Jean, if you want to say hello, and I think you know Winston better than me, but you can just say hello. Jean.
Hi, thanks Irene, and thanks Winston. I can also see Stephanie is on the webinar, but this is just a good evening from me, Jean Mathenge, and welcome to today's webinar and chapter meeting.
Thanks. Thanks, Jean. So Jean is our president, and Lynette, as mentioned, is our VP of marketing. All right. So I think I've covered all the niceties. Winston is long-standing member. He's a veteran in the project space, and I'm lucky to work with him as well. So I get to share luck both ways. So Winston, I will let you go straight into it, and then we'll definitely help you moderate. So Winston, I'll hand it over to you. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. I hope my voice is audible enough.
Yes, but if you could add volume just a bit.
Oh, okay.
Or come closer.
This helps. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Right. So, good people, thank you very much. It's also a pleasure to present and, of course, to be in presence of this great audience. It goes without saying, Jean is the one who actually, our president is the one who approached me to ask me to prepare for this talk. And what came to my head is, when you ask to prepare for a talk, the first thing you ask is, how long is the talk? So I remembered Woodrow Wilson. I don't know the American president. Any of you remember him? And before I move, I can see Lynette, your hand is still up. Is it a burning point for now, or it was the previous one? All right. Okay, I would assume it's the other one. So Irene, I think you'll help me moderate in case, and then the session will be, of course, Q&A at the end of the last 15 or so minutes. So I was saying, Woodrow Wilson mentioned and was asked, how do you prepare for speeches? He said, it depends. If I'm speaking for 10 minutes, I'll need a week. 15 minutes, 3 days, half an hour, 2 days, an hour. He said he's ready now. But I think for me, to tell you the truth, the reverse is true. So this session is on, first is titled Project Management Resources and Tool. But I like perhaps just to tweak it a bit in the way I'm going to tackle it. Because before I dive in, the temptation when you hear technology, particularly for us who are in technology space, is we have a temptation to very quickly dive. Yeah. Yes. All right, you can hear me? Or is there...
Yes, you can get you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, someone was calling me. Is that Jane or something?
Sorry, someone had called to ask the name of the speaker. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Irene, I don't believe we're hearing Winston.
Oh, I actually thought it was me. Winston, are you still there?
It looks like he's muted.
Oh, I muted the last. All right, so just to move on quickly. So I said the focus of this, I decided I will not deep dive straight into tech. I decided to look at the bigger aspects that it really should drive the selection of these tools. And so the structure of this talk, of course, will first just look at these factors that we need to bear in mind as we go ahead and select the tools. And then I'll dive into now just an overview of a few selected leaders and some of them which are available for us. And then we'll have our Q&A. So the session is as mentioned. We'll do a Q&A at the end of the whatever. So I like putting into context my project management life. And of course, I kick off with where I believe my project management really started. I brought up in a farm, of course, you heard me talk about cows. And I do believe what you're seeing on your screen was actually, I think, the first sort of project initiatives I first saw. These are the first Scrum teams I actually saw. And really, if you look at it simply, is that it was just about getting the job done, getting the tool and knowing the right place to do getting the right job to be done and knowing where you're doing the job. And of course, bearing in mind that you do remember then, these are perhaps what we would have considered standards then. Our email, of course, is a gentleman running up there. That was what we had then. Of course, the girls then were trusted with a bit more information. For the boy, by the time he got to the end of that journey, perhaps would only remember one thing or not anything. And you'd have to come back. Anyway, I digress. So let me get into it. So I'll look into this topic let me bring it to context. In a context of one, at the project and the program execution level, which is bottom where we work. But I'll also appreciate that there's a portfolio and we also work under portfolios. And it's important as project managers, we appreciate that we exist as a part of a larger ecosystem in an organization. And so even though where we don't have defined portfolio offices or even some PMOs, so you'll find that the fundamentals of these offices end up being domiciled in one function or the other, because there are people who define strategy, priorities, initiatives, projects, and of course, even guiding us, even if you're doing projects in a where there is no portfolio-based or enterprise-based PMOs and so on and so forth. And then I'll focus now on the tools, bearing in mind that aspect, where I'll look at the tools at portfolio level, just a bit of at enterprise level, but not so also to lose the ones who don't have those environments. I'll come down to the ones that, of course, us as projects down here at the execution level, bear in mind. It will do a bit of disservice if you don't look at some of the trends that are really driving this industry of ours. One, there's a huge now, rather, in as much as even in the small organizations, though they may not call it enterprise PMO, but there's now, though even where organizations before ran projects, individuals as in departments and all, now there's a huge focus, and it's predicted by around 2024, almost 60-70% will be run under a certain drive or a function in an organization, which perhaps will be an enterprise PMO that will drive most of these initiatives. There's also a huge shift because of the way people are doing business now, and people are now trying to define themselves, particularly the guys in the commercial side, or rather what I would call the profit-making side, and even the non-profit for that matter, whether they're actually product or customer-centric. And what is happening to that is that what I would consider, to bring the point home without belaboring this topic, which is quite wide, is that when you look at a product centric is when you believe you have a very good product and you want to then promote that and believe that's your age. And one way to look at it and simply is that Google and Apple are a few what you'd call as product centric brands. And then Amazon would be a good example of what you'd call a customer centric brand. Why do I mention all this? It's because the kind of now initiatives we are getting as project managers are now driven to satisfy or deliver value for these initiatives. And so even as we do these tools, we then need to bear in mind this environment we're delivering in, so that we get a tool that quickly shows the value we're delivering in, perhaps if it's a product environment, product-centric environment, and even the customer-centric environment, you're able to show that value quickly. The other shift is, of course, driven by what I've just said, is you'll now find we are having digital product managers who are working with us. And what is happening now is that these guys also, now we are interfacing with them a lot, and they will also be consumers of these tools, and we may drive our influence around these tools. The other one that goes without saying, it's a tech and the innovations around the tech, and largely so the AI, the deep learning, machine learning, and all those things are really disrupting this space in terms of vendors now are having to now quickly incrementally accommodate and have some of these features to support particularly the decision making area even in our project management. And that said, what then is then going to be a big driver into the way we determine our tools is that before, traditionally we used to deliver and we had tools that perhaps supported what I was reading along Gartner. Gartner was saying is calling a continuous next, and Gartner is recognizing. Gartner is one of the top research bodies, which it's important when you are delivering anything an industry. It's a good go-to area. It's saying there's a shift from what we call a bimodal mode of operation, where we just focused on perhaps renovating the legacy environment and trying to tweak some few digital things here and there so that we fit in the digital world. And mode two, we had a sort of an innovation team that perhaps was given work just to focus on innovations or try out and experiment a number of things, which they will deliver perhaps 3-4 years. But now, to bring the point home, is that even here, with what has happened with 2020, without mentioning, without belaboring what it is, if I had told even Madam VP to implement an e-meeting, I bet her response would have been, yeah, we'll put it perhaps in, let's try in a small function, then if it works, then maybe in another 3-4 years, we'll move and we'll do the e-meetings and all. But what has happened? Bam, 2020, yeah. And that is a kind of shift. And so companies are having to continuously now find themselves in a space where they have to deliver value continuously vis-a-vis the traditional way of doing things. And another case in point is, imagine yourself, you are a PM who was working under the vaccine industry. These guys are used to where they work over 10, in spans of 10, 5, purely by model actually, where they've just focused on mode one, improving what they already have in the market. And second one, they just focused on 5, delivering a product maybe 10, 5, 20 years. But what has happened? Within a year, we've had products which have rolled out, and look, that kind of shift is what is now going to also impact, even as we think about the tools. We can no longer think about tools traditionally and the way we used to work. So it's important we bear that in mind. Well, that said, then with all these transformations, there are many ways to, of course, I don't like finishing this statement. The other day, I was giving a talk in my daughter's junior school, and I finished it, and it became a crisis. In fact, my talk almost ended. Those 6, 7-year-olds, they started saying I'm brutal, and then I didn't help when I started saying, correcting that it's not to kill, it's to skill. Now, anyway, I digress. So there are many ways to then address all these transformations from a tools perspective. And in fact, also, even the way we deliver projects traditionally now, we have to factor things like what our evangelist of Agile would be, Richard, and Agile teams, and the gurus here coming guns blazing now telling us the new approaches we need to bear in mind. But what should be most important for us and as PMs, as we are going for these tools, is to simply make life simple and just ensure simplicity. Because like we've had to go digital, even in our meetings, even in our work from home. Even the people we never considered tech savvy and all, I mean, they're able to now be brought up to technology, and they're using these tools and everything. So even as we go around that, it's important to bear that in mind. Now, I'll not talk too much around this, but I know because of these changes and these new focus in business and the way businesses and people are now repositioning themselves as companies or organizations. Also, we are finding the traditional organization type is changing. Before, what I would call strategy was just left to chance, where we'll do 5-year plan, then someone it's packed in some guy's office, and we continue with our BAU and life moves on. And perhaps even 1-2 projects will come out. Now, right. There's the technology I'm talking about. So we are now having these offices like strategic realization offices, which are now giving us initiatives. And the reason I'm bringing this aspect of management organization type is because they now become also a key stakeholder who we need to factor in selection of the tools, because they are the guys also we quickly need to be showing that we are delivering value. Remember, PMO before we were focused on our in terms of defined deliverables, where we are meeting them, budget, and SROs and these big offices or strategic realization offices, they're more focused on value creation. So when you get your tool, make sure you can quickly communicate to this group of people and even show them something in a language they understand using the tool you have. Whereas where we could have very quickly locked our tools in a set of our department and quickly just done our nice. Now we now bear in mind that these are the guys giving us initiatives. And without talking much around it, there are a thin line, of course. We have people who are called like business transformation office as well. And it's a thing, I mean, some people interchange the two. But what you're finding is that these are now the people who are supposed to be bridging strategy and execution. And so they're interfacing directly with the traditional PMO. And with that, bearing in mind, they also expect to be able to track and monitor and see how quickly we are delivering these transformation initiatives and so on and so forth. Of course, without belaboring what I've just talked about, there's now also focus where they don't have this to you find people now organizing themselves and having a portfolio office or something that now is doing all these organization and prioritizations and giving us initiatives we need to drive. And tying, they're even the ones who are dictating the tools we even need to deploy. And even the ones now we have to make sure they align into those ones. So in us, we are factoring and ensuring simplicity. It's now when you're selecting a tool, factoring how then you'll either, if there's one existing in this space, how you'll integrate upwards. And if there's one that doesn't exist in this space, how then theirs, when it comes, will integrate downstream. So the other one, of course, is the PMO. We assume most organizations do have, but most don't. And this is also now, they are now looking at these ones are different sort of needs when it comes to tools, and they're also the ones now who are looking to us to ensure standards, best practices, governance across projects and all, and supporting the project management in an organization. So bear in mind as you go look fetching the tool to know which environment are you existing in. Others have also this where they now track capability and capacity of project managers. They just want to ensure that trainings are there, career development is there as well. And of course, you have also donor driven, particularly where the reporting is key. I mean, 70% particularly of donor projects, tools, if the tools don't support your reporting, you really end up being in a crash. So as you go for a tool, if you're in this space, then you need to bear in mind the kind of tools you go, they're helping you deliver that along that need. And of course, then you have the usual, which is now where we don't have any of these, but we just work in perhaps small collaborative work management teams, and you may find even yourself in different teams doing different projects and so on and so forth. But that's it then. What it is important to bear in mind is that this, as project managers, just even like we're going through PMBOK, we always look at enterprise and organizational factors. These are key organizational factors that we need to bear in mind when we are doing our selection of tools. And the interesting bit is that I think we are. What I'm finding is we are. If you ask me, because of all these quick changes, from my few interactions and from my few number of places which I've worked, and I'm not saying this is, I mean, reflective of where, but it's just conversation we have in this sector. Remember PMs we network and all that. We are finding we are in a situation of where you use this ideology. You know, this idiom is used where you have tasks you've been given, particularly as a PM, but theoretically possible. And theoretically they look very possible, but when you put practical considerations, it renders it either entirely unfeasible, but without belaboring, is that you can imagine how the journey of this will be, how many of this will be at the end of this journey. So the key here to bring to relate to what I was mentioning is that as we need to bear in mind is that when we have all these changes, even in the organizations, the management organization types and all that, what is happening if we don't also apply, even as we even do the tools and everything, put it in perspective that in a way we can show value and deliver it quickly, we perhaps end up with the end journey of this. But now I digress. So now let me get to now perhaps closer home in the ocean of technology. So even as a project manager, now once you understand even where your organization makeup or so, there are two things then you need to also bear in mind before you can actually even go to the market for your technology. And because this industry is huge, it's I mean, it's estimated by Gartner and I think also Forrester and this reading, is it IBM? I mean, it's a 3.1 billion industry. So it has variety of tools and sub tools and so on and so forth. And so it's quite polarizing as you go looking out for this. So the other thing which is important to define as you go looking for this is that is now what are as you evaluate this, bear in mind that because of all these changes that also in the trends that are happening, the industry is also undergoing a huge change. And so you're unlikely to find tools that are going to factor all those environments you have, particularly like focusing on strategy to execution alignment, continuous change, and so on and so forth. So it's up to you then to know, and as you evaluate these people, because what these people are doing now, they are now incrementally adding this features, capability to address and suit this kind of trends and also this kind of management organizations. But you see, as customers, what it is that these guys, of course, they're doing this incrementally, and it's only at least established vendors are able to acquire what they don't have and integrate quickly with many other small companies. But you find most of them are also in a journey with us. So it's important, and why I'm bringing this is that when you're evaluating a tool, also inquire about their roadmap. They may not have what you need, but you'll find most of them have white papers and very clear roadmaps towards where they're going. And because also that roadmap is important, because that roadmap where they're going may not serve your need in a few or 2, 3, 4 years. And some of the tools you'll be getting are quite budget-wise. It's quite significant. It's quite a significant decision. So you don't want to do that. The next year you're trying to say this cannot support this, and then I mean, like the other day I was in a meeting where we were in a director and we were evaluating something, and you find a guy. One of the things is asking one of these vendors is that, I mean, you guys don't have robotics and AI. And that was actually last year or so. And you'll find the person asking this, because I was also implementing something else or driving an implementation of something else, you find we are still struggling with something like Office 365. But customer doesn't want that. The customer is right. They want these things 100 now. So even us, I'm sure with this, when we go to these vendors, we may want this now, but we need to bear in mind they have a roadmap, and what we need is to, at times, we just need to look beyond some of the traditional organizations and have an open mind as we go out and look for the tools we are going to use to deliver. Now, coming now closer to technology is that the other thing. Then, when you go to that, you need to know what's your focus? Is it the portfolio enterprise level up there, or do you want to focus where your focus is aligning, prioritizing, strategy realization, and the overall bigger picture for the kind of tool you're looking at? Or are you focused at the execution level? Are you, is when you're going for that tool, is your primary focus at this? And if it's any of the two, is there a roadmap for the other? So that are you planning starting at a portfolio, then you come down to execution? Are you starting at execution, then you come out to portfolio? Because if that is the case, then you need to know any tooling which you're putting in play, or even which is in play, then integration of with the other, either upstream or downstream, becomes a priority requirement as you evaluate that tool. And so as we reinvent the way we are doing things and you look for these tools, let's bear in mind also as we go to those and look out for those tools, we know the configuration we are sort of looking for. Then it's also important now to also know, bearing in mind the kind of organizations we are, what's our primary use case? I think one of the things that should be organized is one of those, how to come up with some of these things. Now, which will help us deep dive a bit on use cases and all. So the key here is you may find the organization is more of an IT project portfolio management sort of focus, where that's what you guys deliver mostly, tech products and so on and so forth. And your focus is just enterprise-wide portfolio and project management you're looking at. The other one is what we were talking about, is reporting you're looking at. The other one is just want to focus on collaboration without no center focus and so on and so forth. So once you know your use case, most of these tools, what they've done now is align themselves along this use case. And so it's important now, once you identify where you lie here, you'll now be able now to go and get and fetch your tool and select the tool you want. The other one now, of course, goes without saying, it's the capabilities. Now, once you know your use case, then you now know what is the primary capabilities. The reason I say primary is that you need to define your core, because you'll not find, it's unlikely you find, unless it's a jack of all trades, someone who will offer everything here according to the way you like it or the way you need it. So once you define whether it's project demand management, planning, time, resource, portfolio, integration, what is it you're looking for? What's your primary focus? Then there, you'll find that now you'll be able to identify your core, then you start now making decisions how to now add and look for other vendors, or perhaps you can integrate with what they're now giving you at core. Now, I'll focus and look at this now in terms of evaluating the tools. I'll start with the execution level tool. And the execution level tool, my focus is going to be, you'll notice I've called it collaborative work management. If I was doing this talk in 2019, I would perhaps just dived into reviewing traditional project management tools that we were used to working with on premise. But we do know the 2020 legacy, of course, what it is, the chaos that we are finding ourselves in. And so I'm finding that I felt I would do more of a justice to this talk if I looked at it from that aspect when I'm evaluating the execution level tools. So because what the pandemic has done, it's forced us to shut down offices, requiring us work remote. So how teams work together and how organizations preserve productivity when they are not co-located, is a big question here. And so before, we would say perhaps some of the tools we know, even Teams, Slack, will help in our ad hoc and sharing of information. But now what we are looking at, because of this new way of working, is the organization need greater capabilities, particularly around the projects, where we can track projects and also automate processes to improve delays that occur, particularly when employees are based at home. You can no longer be like before. I could quickly walk to Jean's desk and collaborate face to face and unblock. Now I need a tool that we can quickly do the same sort of digital collaboration vis-a-vis what we used to do before. So what these tools then, the reason I've called it collaborative is what we are actually doing then is collaboratively working to deliver projects and to help ourselves deliver projects effectively. So I've taken that into context when I'm evaluating this level of execution tools. And so one of the things then you need, bearing that in mind, is to look for a tool that then gives you strong content collaboration within the solution. And this actually, because remember, whereas most of these support functions, legal operations and other capabilities, procurement, we knew where to go get them physically. But now we also need, now there are tools now we need to factor, which are able to provide an extent use to support even these aspects, even as far as your either plugging in, your tool plugs into other bigger systems that perhaps now is provided, because even these departments, they're also moving towards the direction of going digital, and so that they can ensure they also deliver your BAU from home. So then that interface need to bear it in mind, and that content collaboration with these key functions, which you need as a project manager to deliver. And of course, the usual is approval workflow is key, because that's one of the other things we need to follow. I mean, that we really yearn for when you're delivering. And the thing is, it's also because with all these consolidated workspaces where we are working remotely, the tool should also support at least also improved audit capability. So I'm finding nowadays when we do our teams meeting, it's like we no longer have before where I could quickly do minutes and everyone it was a very well focused governance, because that is what will be audited from an organization point of view. So ensure you have a team that can support your improved audit capability. The other thing to bear in mind is that with the rest of the workflow also changing in the enterprise environment, bear in mind then that the tool should also enable have capabilities to scale your project and process management while still retaining these individual execution capabilities. So also factor in the security and permissions configuration, because now remember now we are playing in the hacker's paradise. It's not on premise where we could quickly, barely worked with these tools. So a lot of the offerings we have now, we are fully on where the hackers thrive, not ourselves. Well, the other thing we need to support is, every time I bring out this aspect of analytics and machine learning, it sounds very far-fetched, but I mean, just put it in context. You don't have to worry about how that is happening. But when you tell a vendor what you need is to support you see, what is driving up this working digitally is that you need also to access critical data, which can be used to also help in prioritizing and allocation of decisions, particularly at the management level. So you need to have tools that the only way most of these tools do this, it's having this capability to quickly support analytics and machine learning, so that and the other thing is that ensure alongside that now becomes, and the big output from this, the vendors are able to develop graphic reporting and interactive dashboards while leveraging now the gains provided by this, for instance, machine learning. And then even when you come now to even manage tracking your resources, you are identifying your risks, particularly things like burnouts and so on and so forth. These tools can now very easily, based on the way you configure them, allow and when they have this capability, they can be able to very well support you alongside those areas. So to just dive in, one, I'm not endorsing any tool here, which is why the approach I took is to just go to the industry top research guys. We have Forrester, we have Gartner, and look at what are they saying around this area of collaborative work management tools and projects and project management. So you can see what we are seeing on my right here is that you can see the leaders here, what they've been identified. You have Workfront, you have Smartsheet, you have ServiceNow, and you have Rike. Then you have other tools which are very strong performers. Is Microsoft tools, Asana, Monday.com. Atlassian is coming as a contender, particularly at the level of execution, but it does very well on the next space, which it's actually a leader when looking at the enterprise level of particularly project delivery. But in terms of supporting you as individual at the individual experience level, in terms of some of the capabilities you need in execution, it's some of these others have been identified as providing better. So the chart to interpret is the leaders are the ones I'm flagging here with this laser beam. And just to perhaps break, they use the vendor mostly when they're identifying who are the solutions. The vendor, the solution, the product they ranked is, when they talk about Asana is one Asana. When they talk about Atlassian, they are looking at this offering of Trello, Confluence, Jira software, Jira Core. Of course, Microsoft is the usual, we know. For those of us who are in Microsoft, I went to an organization where I was told, you on your own, you just assume we are the guys who know, as we don't use Microsoft anyway. But the bigger ecosystem actually somehow interfaces with Microsoft. Monday.com has actually come up very well, and there's now platforms, Smartsheet, Workfront, and even the workplace from Facebook is it's still under huge development as far as of capability is concerned. And looking at these tools, perhaps what you can look at is see when you look at the capabilities, the rank here, which I'm highlighting, is from the high. You can see Microsoft they're doing quite well in terms of capability service now. The roadmap I was talking about, it's critical so that you know where are they heading and are they going to support. Some of you can see how they're ranked. Then in terms of number of customers, this is adoption. So that you know how well then this is also a fit, something as a good sign of knowing in terms of when you're evaluating. You can see the Microsoft has very high adoption, Monday.com as well, ServiceNow. Now, a quick point here is that this research at times factors a lot of the global statistic, and so I know a lot of us like looking at the local context. So I really searched for. Actually, I was trying to talk to IDC to see whether they can, but of course, IDC is nothing comes free anyway. So I didn't have, my conversation didn't get to the point of where they could have given me a local context around particularly Africa and our region and what people are using, because there are usually some interesting dynamic around there. However, this as well gives you a perspective as what are the ones people are looking. So what I'll do is just pick a number or two, like 3 or 4 of the leaders. The first one is Workfront. It has a huge, strong feature set for particularly around bigger enterprises. They're quite robust in its planning and tracking capabilities. But what it does is that it suits companies that have developed work management and vision. So if you are going for this tool, you need to bear in mind that it requires very focused change management effort. So if you don't have that in play, bear in mind that you may not get full utility around this tool. Its key strength falls mainly in 3 categories. The enterprise capability and support is very good. Content collaboration is great, and of course analytics. It's great at analytics. So its key strength. So the other one, of course, I'll bring up around this level. One can go for is look at Rike. Rike is mostly before it used to target IT and professional services, like project management. It has a strong, what I would call user experience for work management. And what it does is that the biggest strength they have is the ease of use. It also supports actually strong planning and delivery practices, and enabling it to also reduce work in progress and conflicts and increase output. And now the other one, of course, you have here is you have Smartsheet. It's quite dynamic in the work management for enterprise particularly. One of the key features it has, its core work-related data it provides. It's able to report that aggregate data to provide multi-sheet feedback. Dashboards are great for this. It has, but investments around analytics are still work in progress. The other one, of course, I'll go to is Microsoft. Microsoft is what Microsoft, the approach they've done is they've taken like Atlassian, they're offering you a pack. There's Planner, List, Teams, Project, SharePoint, Office 365 suite. And what they do, if you look at the focus of Microsoft right now, they suggest that Teams is a starting point, and then users choose other tools to support different work needs. So the larger or more complex projects, then you pick project, for instance, or other third-party planning tools to, for instance, now integrate with the ecosystem if, let's say, project doesn't serve you. But it's really supporting that integration. And so if you happen to even go to some of the app side of Teams and that kind of, you'll see a lot of quick integrations into all these, most of all these tools I'm mentioning, which can enable you. So for them, they're based on the premise that the way they will define their user journey is from a Teams perspective. Mandy.com, they create work environment that fits a number of use cases. They've taken a horizontal approach. When I say horizontal, is that they cut across. They don't say they support a certain vertical alone, let's say banking or whatever. So it doesn't restrict. One of the things, it's quite flexible. It doesn't restrict for whichever methodology or approach you're using, traditional, waterfall, agile, whatever. It provides you with customized workflows and notifications. It's quite good. Atlassian, of course, leverages on its the offering. For those of you who have come across Atlassian, you know, particularly the big boys in Agile, Trello, Confluence, Jira, the Jira core. Those are the core execution tools they provide at this level. But when we are looking at the next session, I'll talk about the bigger one they provide that now is able to give you the enterprise look of your implementations. It's quite team oriented and it offers support for various great support. And what it does is that the only area having worked with particularly like Trello, it struggles a bit in the way you manage your workspaces for larger teams. So so bear that in mind. But it's perhaps on very minimal use case area. But for that, it's I do recognize it's a good tool. Without mentioning, if I've not mentioned a tool, but I'll give you as an opportunity, I'll use a Menti tool to just do a poll on the tools people use. It's not to say that those are the only tools. It's just what you need to bear in mind. If you put in perspective the context I've approached. I know I have like 5 more minutes because I know they took my minutes. If you put into context, even when you go to all these and look at these reports people do, I mean the industry leaders do, and then talk to a number of your benchmarking organizations you want to like benchmarking with, you'll be able to at least also evaluate the tool you're using. It's not to say those are the only tools. It's just to bring in perspective some of the way now then some of them have addressed some of the way we are working. Now, the other one I want to finalize with is now at the execution. Now you also need to bear in mind now at the enterprise level, particularly if you are now charged with driving projects at the enterprise level or an organizational level, you then need to look for sort of enterprise portfolio agile tools. Now, the reason I've put agile there is not to say if we don't do agile, but it's just to say that with the environment now we are operating in, it's imperative we factor agile way of quickly delivering as we even look for tools. So that is the reason why I'm putting that title that way. It's not for any particular promotion of agile as way of approach, but no. But you need to, it's imperative we factor that because companies are now also finding that they're increasing the number of agile teams in the organization because of the initiatives particularly being driven with this change we're undergoing. I mean, autonomous teams are also shifting from the centralized IT project management to decentralized line of business product management. You have things like team creating at macro levels and so on and so forth. There's also now this huge need to maintain things like what you call velocity over time. Well, and you require fast and accurate decision support. So it's important then you ensure the tools you're looking for first, at least it supports this sort of agile enterprise planning when it comes to the enterprise portfolio tool you're looking for. The other analyst should have is the other capability I talked about earlier. Well, it's possible to predict timelines and outcomes manually at the team level. At the portfolio level, particularly of some of these large organizations with 1,000,001 things going, it's predictability then requires a bit of data aggregation and analysis. So the tool you're looking for ensure it's help, and the only way most of these tools address this is by having this capability of machine learning and to improve this decision support. So complex functions like resource capacity planning that would really, or even strategic performance data, measuring whether how quickly the portfolio, optimizing your portfolios of projects and all that, really that really helps in that area. The other one, of course, is a robust integration capability. You need to bear that in mind. It goes without saying. So the transparency, obtaining sufficiency transparency into enterprise performance, then it requires you to sort of aggregate or integrate with critical data elements from analysis and reporting. So the tool you're going for then, it must act like a communication hub, enabling your organization identify their strategic investments, calculate their business case values, and so on and so forth. So this data requires then, of course, I mean, you're looking at now even the space where now you need to factor things like robust modern APIs, which now you plug into other systems for that matter. I don't want to go into much into tech, and so that you're able to quickly integrate and pick quick data and whatever from these tools. So the leaders here are, as you can see on my chart as I conclude, is you can see Atlassian and Broadcom. You can see PlanView, Micro Focus, some people call AHA Labs, very interesting guys. And Gartner, on the other hand, has also, on the right, I have Forest Wave, what the forest identified, and then Gartner is in their 2020, as of March 2021, this is what they've identified. Atlassian is doing quite well. Digital AI, Broadcom, GitLab, Microsoft is here as a challenger as well. So like what I did for then here, the same thing, I won't dwell into those tools because I've mentioned what the tools, but what key to note here is that Atlassian, the tool now here is called Jira Align. It's one that now taps into the other four ones I mentioned, Trello, Confluence, and Jira Core. And then Broadcom, the tool they use is called Clarity. Micro Focus is called Micro Focus. So these are the industry leads in terms of the tools, the big whatever's. So, but to bring what I'm looking at now here, just pick a number of leaders, and one of them, of course, is digital AI, which is very huge in product road mapping, program portfolio tracking, visibility into value stream. It particularly you also have it really supports dev tools such as Azure, DevOps, Jenkins, Atlassian, several in terms of integration. So it's quite good. Clarity, of course, it's actually a leader as well, and it's quite robust in its way. It has a strong, particularly support for the guys in Agile or for SAFe. And it's therefore solid for anyone thinking around using that framework particularly. Atlassian, of course, formerly this we call Agile Craft actually. It's actually a leader in as far as this is concerned. What it does is now it's one of the, it has quite a huge installation base when it comes to the portfolio enterprise Agile management. So and the Jira Align really its usability and all that, it's really I think even their low barrier of entry that you can just go to atlassian.com and quickly pick up this tool and start testing them. That really gives them also a bit of adoption and penetration. Of course, Mike goes without saying. Microsoft, the main tool here. So Microsoft, as I said, is a huge ecosystem. So, and of course, they guard the ecosystem but the key to driving tool is something they call Azure Bots. That perhaps usually gives you that view of delivery and quickly comes in through something called Azure DevOps suite. As the word goes, you can hear it's very geared towards digital technology projects, but that's not to say you'll find out that you'll be highly unlikely not delivering something that requires a digital aspect, whether you're outsourcing or not. So you may find whether even if you're using a vendor, you're somehow having to talk to those tools either through a link or whatever it is for the way they're delivering. So to bring the point home, what this talk just aimed, because of the short time I have, it's just to bring out fundamentals. It's if you are to deep dive in tools, it can be, I mean, even one tool can even take you a whole day. When we used to teach, when I teach at Strathmore, MS Project is a 1 week tool, for instance. So in conclusion, all it is that I'm not an expert per se. I can't say I'm an industry expert in our authority. And if you haven't mentioned your tool, then it's not to say it's not the best, but it's not delivering for you. That's my references are right there. And of course, what I can say is thank you. Now, but before I hand over the Q&A, I just want to take a quick Q&A as well. Just 2 questions. Madam Chair, if allowed. Irene or who's chair? Okay.
Thanks,
So
Winston. So you're actually having challenges.
Yeah, I just want to do. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to throw one question here, just to that we just get a quick, as people perhaps as people now go to, what is it called? I mean, as people prepare the other questions or compile the other questions, I just need to you look at your screen. You can quickly go to that tool. Just it's a web-based tool. Just check. Is that screen displaying?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, just go quickly to that as we look at the other tools questions quickly, and let's see ment.co. Just use that code when it asks you. Then just answer, put whatever it is. We just want to see a quick poll on what guys are using out there. So for me, that's it, and thank you very much, good people.
Okay, thank you so much, Winston. So I've just posted that as well on the chat in case you can't find it. I actually want to try this one as well. Winston, how will we see the results? So you'll display them? There you go.
They'll display as it's going on.
All right. Okay. So I can't see hands from here. So does anyone have any question? You can feel free to raise your hand so that I can pick you out and ask you to.
I can see results coming in. As you can keep a look at the screen, you'll see what people are doing. It's not from what I talked. You can just mention any, even if I didn't mention it. So the none part, I would like to know. Even Excel is a tool, by the way. It's quite powerful, don't fraud. 11, 12 people have taken part. MS project is quite is trending there. Kobo Collect, Google Sheets, App Solution Manager, Dynamics. So yeah, so at least what it tells me is that I was not way off in my yapping over here. So
Okay. I see Robert's hand. Robert, would you like to, first of all, karibu sana. Robert is actually from Ethiopia, so it's always nice to see him. Robert, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hi, how are you? Sorry, I think it was by mistake, but can just say hi, even to the presenter who I know.
yeah, hi Robert, how is Addis? A bit of context, Robert, you come from very far. You come from a nearby village with him, and so we, even now when I'm in Addis, we usually catch up. So, any other question, maybe?
I can't see any hands. I just wanted to give everyone a chance to ask a question.
Right. That means either I was very technical or comprehensive.
Eunice, I see your hand. Would you like to unmute and ask your question? Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. This tool for seeing the usage, is it always available? Can I check anytime, or is this available currently? And number two, what is your best resource management tool that you can say has stood out in your analysis?
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Eunice. That's a nice question. So the tool, I presume you're talking about I'm displaying as on the results, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately it will expire in 2 days. I'm using the free version, but it's an interesting tool even to do quick polls within it's under mentimeter.com. We'll go there. So you can quickly play around with it and see how you can do. However, what I do, I'll save this and then I can perhaps share with the PMO. I mean, the PMI, and then you can see what guys are using. So second question, of course, is around resources. So resources, remember, in project management, there are various types. So just perhaps a bit of clarity. Is all resources, or you need strength particularly in terms of maybe human resources, or particularly even in terms of the other types of resources?
Mostly human resources.
All right, yeah. So, and it, as I mentioned, is that one, it depends particularly at the level of which you're managing these resources. If your environment, if you have a portfolio-based environment where you have an enterprise level management, it becomes quite easy because you're able to. The one of the best tools I've seen, particularly, is a set of Atlassian actually, and also Broadcom, the clarity. It's really able to even give you, and actually even Microsoft, those are the ones I've actually also used, so not to mention things that perhaps most people don't use. Even Microsoft, if you use it well, it's able to give you even those heat maps of where you're going to run into risks of things like burnouts and so on and so forth. So any of those three I've seen, for me, from my experience, have worked quite well. But I'm not. It's also good to hear. Could be biased. It's also good to hear from any other person, maybe one or two, before we have maybe 1 minute or so. Any of the ones they found out. Right. Yeah. So Eunice, those are the ones I've found quite robust, because the key is now particularly addressing the friction that comes along straining the resources when you put them, because they're always limited anyway, when you put them particularly in a number of initiatives, and then you don't have a view of whether they are strained, or whether, and that becomes a risk as well to your project as well, and so on and so forth. So those I've found quite addressing that. Any other? I hope Eunice have helped you a bit.
Yes, thank you.
Winston, I was going to ask you a question. I've seen someone who's put Excel and then a sad face. I'm just wondering if you would speak to how complex would it need, how many projects then become make Excel difficult, or what are usually the downsides of using Excel versus something like Microsoft Project?
Yeah. So one, if you're just running perhaps one or two, which you're in full control as a function, you can, and if you're a good SQL guy, you can very quickly tweak it to give you all those things, that particularly around even dashboards and your plannings and all that. But as you know, most of us just know Excel, the basic functions. So you find the biggest utility you find when it comes to projects, people using Excel is just to list. One is graphing, in terms of reporting, in terms of budgeting, but it comes now to the critical aspects of tracking delivery. tracking, resource planning, and those core things that also affect implementation other than the core of Excel, which is playing around the data aspects and budgeting and finance and all that, then you start to struggle. So if you have a simple 1 or 2 projects which really are not, and in fact, if you even don't have that, most of these tools have offerings which you can now plug into your Excels, and it can let Excel do what it does best. Then you do the other things that, and I'm talking about things like Smartsheet. We can give you a bit of free offering for your small projects to address these other issues. But the reason I'm particularly knowing they're frowning is because the crisis come when now you have to really show your schedules, really show your progress, really track your when things are late and all that. So those are the, but if you're now able to, if that's the main tool you have, I think what I've seen people do is go online and get the, because that means you're perhaps also in a very smaller project environment, go online and then also plug what you have on Excel, which is very key. Then you now use it together with a tool like even Rake or Smartsheet. Jira actually has, there's a Jira call that has, that has a bit of free offering, but not, will still give you a bit of limit. But Smartsheet and all, those can give you a bit of very good integration and be able to address, these are the aspects which are key for project management.
Hey, Winston, this is Jean. Irene, can I go ahead and ask?
Yes, Jean, go ahead.
You know, the AI, and we're having a lot of these scheduling tools which have got robots. You know, you've got small little robots that are talking to you and giving you heads up. Could you give us a couple of examples of those, and of these, like the ones that you have gone through? And I don't know whether anybody is actually using one of those applications or one of those tools that can maybe just describe, because I think there's been a heavy focus, and I don't know whether this is right, Winston, that there's such a big focus on not just monitoring, but collaboration has become such a big thing. So now we've got this thing which is just talking to us all the time and giving us a few heads ups. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's and those are the kind of things now. What they're doing, I'm finding, because of they're trying to break the learning curve in terms of, and as I mentioned, every time you mention that AI and machine learning and all that, what people think it's that's quite far-fetched. I mean, we don't need it. But what most of these two vendors are doing, and I'll bring a point home with Microsoft, is that they're now trying to break this learning curve so that when you start, and sure, you can still do better with the tools you have. And in essence, what they're doing behind there is learning you and doing machine learning. A good question is, a good example is, any of us who use Microsoft or Office 365 have seen a thing called Cortana, right? In essence, Cortana, every morning, by the way, even you can even, it can even do a lot of the things you need. You can take a break from it. It can tell you, by the way, this guy asked you for this in an email last week. Did you ever do it? You're about to go for this meeting, and I can see this similar document talking about the same. Do you need it? So to tell you, to bring a point home, like Microsoft and all, they're really trying to do that, and you'll find a lot even in the other tools like even Jira, Atlassian, and all. So to bring your point home, I think what should not be a focus is the tech bit of it, which can be quite complicated. Let the people do tech. Focus on the utility. What do you need to achieve? And if you describe your use case properly, and most of these vendors will definitely show you amazing tools, and so perhaps then you may look at the utility. When it comes to the enterprise level, now, whereas we could just quickly deliver some of the things even reporting used to do, just few filterings and run a few queries and VLOOKUPs and so on and so forth, it's now getting quite complicated. In fact, if you have a proper data sheet, even let's give you an example. If you have a UN body and whatever, and you're just trying to evaluate the UN, employee data to perhaps plan on some implementation you're doing. If you try and run the usual VLOOKUPs, that worksheet gets so big. And so where now these tools are coming in is to assist you in those quick analysis and so on and so forth. So knowing the right tool and knowing the vendor and the tool you're now using, which can support those, is now getting more critical. Yeah, I hope Jane perhaps address.
Yeah, it's also very good at projections because as soon as you open your tool, it will talk to you and tell you, hey, there's something that's happening here. So it will draw your attention to a particular area. What do you think about, because I know like you described Microsoft, the tool which leverages a lot on other sector tools. What about areas like construction, social projects? Are there a lot of these tools? Maybe you can speak to that a little bit and say and advise whether a lot of these tools, the basic fundamentals, they're applicable across all sectors, or are there some specific tools that are better for some industry and or not?
Yeah, I'm finding actually construction having an interesting ask, and let's call it infrastructure in terms of tools. I don't know that Rose is in this forum. Rose Kananu is a key driver in that area. But I remember there was a case we had gone to evaluate for a tool for a vendor with Rose, where it was this contractor who was doing a lot of flats and so on and so forth, and they all needed. I mean, they felt they needed something they can manage. Yes, they know there's project management. You can MS project, you can do that, but they needed now something that talks their language, that all the way from bill of works and so on and so forth. Roads are the same and all that. So, and what we found is that, and that's one of the, now I'm saying, I bring up the aspect of integration, is that what these people now have done, because of the special use cases, you will find now they are specialized vendors. That's how saying that capability you're looking for, you're not likely to get a vendor who will give you, but so you determine your core, and then if you now have a specialized use case which you need to plug into. So we found out, I'm forgetting that, remind me, I'll include it in my presentation that I'm sending. We found out quite a number of vendors now who, in fact, their selling point is they tell you, we're able to plug in with the other MS Project tools you use to, and then plug in your scheduling and then bring it here. We focus on these other aspects of material management and so on and so forth. So a question and to bring home is that it's now you ensure your core tool can help you integrate with other tools that then can support your special use case. So that now that becomes now, like when I said about Agile, you already have something that becomes now primary requirement when you're evaluating the tool around that, centered around that integration. But to answer your question is that among these primary players, I think because of this, they're targeting scale, and so they're going for volume. So they focus on the, as in tech we call it vanilla offering, that is core. And then you now with your special use case, what they tell you is that we can be able to integrate with this. And then the vendors vice versa, because they can't change the ship. They then find out their small boat. They ensure that their small boat can then plug into the big ship you're running. Let's say it's a large or MS project, Microsoft and so on and so forth, or SAP. So that's what I found. That's what I found in that industry. But it's quite interesting, and most people have been thinking those guys don't need those tools. These guys are running massive billion projects, and they just want simplicity and to also track delivery like we also do in our corporate deliveries.
Right. Okay, great, thanks. Irene, back to you. Anybody else with a question? Or maybe some experience?
Actually, can't see any hands. Anyone would like to comment on the same?
It should be great if we can get some experience. How some people are using some of these, because I know these are new names for a lot of people.
So okay, maybe I could speak up from our environment, because we kind of do an interesting mix of agile and waterfall. Of course, for waterfall, for sure, the MS project works. However, we do use adaptive, which is now a portfolio view, and it's because I have to see 200 plus projects. So that's what gets complex. But we try to use MS Project mostly for the waterfalls, and then Jira or Azure boards for the agile and heavily software build that we're using. So it's been an interesting one, because the biggest challenge we have now is on something like Jira, trying to do those status updates where you do, and people are used to seeing requirements, design, testing with percentages. With Jira, it gets a lot more complex because you're using tickets. But it's been an interesting learning for us. Hopefully, we'll now do a lot more agile, and then now the MS project will shift. But you'll still do a lot of what are they called? Waterfall projects.
Can see a lady here. I know, Grace Kenya. What do you use? And Robert, I know you guys are very strong in SAP. Robert.
Yes. For us, we use the solution manager, but we also mix a bit on MS project, also combination of DevOps. Somehow we managed to have that. And of course, this is in relation to the ELP, but we still have other people who are still using Excel. So we've not standardized across the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Right. I think we should be good to go. So Winston, if you can share your, let me call them closing arguments. You can close your with your closing thoughts, and then I'll give it to Jean to help us close out the session. So, Winston, thank you so much. So, you can give us your closing thoughts. Then, Jean, you can help us close out the session, and then we should be good to go. Winston.
Yeah. First, thank you for, of course, the opportunity again. It's interesting. We learn a lot as well, and thank you for not a lot of questions, because I know this can be a very technical area, and all I can say is stay safe and keep delivering. And thank you, PMI Kenya, for organizing these sessions. And we look forward to more and also learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Winston. Jean, you could close out the session first.
Okay. Thanks, Irene, and thanks, Winston. Winston, thank you so much for responding to that. You're such a good member of PMI Kenya. I knew I could rely on you. And with your broad experience, I think this was it was very helpful, especially in trying to figure, when you're choosing a tool. I think what you brought out today is that when you're choosing a tool, you don't just go pick one. It depends on what your need is, And so the different management organizational types that you highlighted, I think maybe what this even means is that we need to look at, maybe understand more about these MOTs, because we need to know what exactly is, maybe dive deeper into what a strategy realization office is, a BTO, a PMO, an EPMO, so that now we can start identifying which are the, and kind of aligning it a little bit more. So that was very useful, that some of those considerations need to be taken into account. And I think the other one, the shift from bimodal to continuous next, that was also a new one, and I really appreciated that new insight, because that was a light bulb moment where there's a shift now from just renovating legacy and tweaking digital to actually perpetual renewal, where there's continuous improvement, which has become a kind of a theme in the project management world. And so us as change makers, we should be looking at how are we going to, what kind of tools are we going to use that are going to keep us at the next level, at transformational level. So that was very, very useful. The ocean of, you also talked a little bit about the ocean of PPM technologies. So many things that we need to consider, focusing on execution level, what is our primary use case, and so on. So we really appreciate you, Winston. And just to wind up, I think the next what some of our members will be able to see now coming forward after this is that we have an event on May the 21st. Irene, I believe you're maybe I don't know whether you can maybe just mention something about that. The chapter has been very, very purposeful about more collaborations, more partnerships. So you're going to see us tying up with a lot of other global and regional chapters, and trying to get broader perspectives. And this is really important for us to kind of learn what is happening outside of our country and outside of our region. So I just encourage everybody to just kind of look at that and join and earn those PDUs, not just for PDUs, but so that you can get broad perspectives from international discussions. And then I just wanted to highlight one or two things, Irene, if you're okay with that. We've had a lot of really good contributions from volunteers. Stephanie has been leading us as the VP of volunteers. She's been, helping us to get more and more volunteers. Let me just encourage all the members, if you want to volunteer in one of the roles in the chapter, please go ahead and keep an eye out on your VRMS. And if you don't know what the VRMS is, just talk to Stephanie and see, because we are trying to open up as many positions as possible so that we can get new people. Well, we got new ambassadors for our kickoff citizen developer, organizational transformation, wicked problem solving, Simon, Lillian, and Lee. So they're really helping, and they're going to be actually having sessions with you so that you can understand what is this wicked problem solving. And actually, it can tie very well into what Winston has been talking about today, including the organizational transformation. So it's going to tie in really well with what we've learned. So I think the foundation that Winston has given us today is also something that we can use going forward. And actually, I would like to suggest to you, Winston, that maybe you can come back next time and take us into part 2 of this kind of a discussion so that we can actually delve a little bit deeper. But that's just my suggestion, and Irene, maybe she can take a look at that. The other thing you're going to see is that there's going to be we're trying to get into partnerships with the ATPs, so maybe we'll be giving you a couple of highlights on that. I hope you've been seeing the PMP initiative. I think Abdul is on the call today. He's been running with that so that everybody can kind of understand what the new PMP initiative 2021 is about. They had a session on Tuesday. There's going to be more sessions coming up every month. If you want to understand what those initiatives are, please just plug in. So with that, those many words, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for staying active. Continue to stay plugged into Project Management Institute Kenya chapter. Thanks so much, Irene, and Abdul and all the team members for organizing this. So once again, Winston, thanks a lot. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.